walk us through this. And at certain points during the program, he's actually going to ask you to vote via chat. And, you know, and then you can change your vote the next time he asks. But so anyway, let's get started with Josh Levy, Associate Director of Admissions, Oberlin College. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, Moira. Thank you so much for having me. I love doing this program because it's a lot of fun. I've done case studies in a variety of places, and most of the time, what it entails is me giving you a stack of paper and saying, read this and tell me what you think. And inevitably, people who've never looked at this thing before, they're like, I don't know. I have no idea. You tell me what I should think. And so this program is meant for people who just want some more information about how admissions decisions are made. The cases here are based on real cases. They're not 100% real. I have tweaked things. The essays that I will share with you are actual essays that were submitted to Oberlin. One of them is about 6 or 7 years old. The other two are from this past year, as it turns out. So the other two are for students who are freshmen somewhere. But the goal is to help you understand this without actually looking at the documents and getting confused by them. So what I want to start with is some basic information about what goes into the application. Some of this may be new to you, some of this may not, but I want to just at least go over it so that we're all sort of on the same page. So when your sons, or if you have daughters as well at other schools, when your daughters are applying to college, they're going to have to submit certain pieces of an application. What we have here is specific to the common application. There are other applications. The other big one is called the coalition application. And then there are colleges and universities that have their own application that they have designed. I'm not going to touch on those at all. What I'm really talking about now is the common application, which is accepted at well over, I don't know, Moira and Alicia can say exactly how many schools, but it's a lot of colleges will take this. So you fill out the common application itself just once. Okay, and that information is going to get sent to all the common application schools that your child is applying to. What's in the common application? Well, there's biographical information about the student. There's some basic information about the parents. There is some information about where the student goes to high school. There is a list of extracurricular activities. There is an essay that they will fill out. There are additional sections for things like, I have additional information to share, or I want to talk to you about how COVID impacted my high school educational process or my extracurricular life. That's that first line, the common application with essay. The same information goes to every single common application school. The essay is really the one piece of the application that you have control over. The student has control over. The student is choosing the topic. The student is choosing what to write about for that topic. The student is saying, I think this is a great picture of who I am and what I have to contribute to the community in some way. Okay? There's then what's called the member screen section. This is a section. It's usually a few questions that are specific to each individual college that your child is applying to. They're very basic things. Nowadays, this is where the student would say, yes, I would like to apply with test scores or without test scores. Some colleges have a supplemental essay. In many cases, that supplemental essay is a why do I want to go to this college essay. Other schools have their own take on things. The University of Chicago is very well known for having a different kind of supplemental essay that they use. Okay? So your child will have to fill out some stuff in a member section that's specific to each college. The next couple of sections are things that the student doesn't control at all. The guidance counselor will write a letter of recommendation for your child. Your child is not going to tell your guidance counselor what to say. Okay? The counselor will write this letter. The same with the academic teachers. Okay, your students will ask teachers to write letters of recommendation. They are not going to write the letters for the teachers. They are not going to tell the teachers what to write. The teachers will write the letters. Okay? Your students should be should look at individual college requirements when it comes to letters of recommendation. Okay? There are some colleges that say, we want one letter of recommendation. There are others that say we want two letters of recommendation. They must be from a teacher from 11th or 12th grade, and they must be from one of the main academic areas. And those areas are English, math, social studies, science, or a foreign language. Okay? At Oberlin, we tend to get a lot of students who apply with a math teacher and an orchestra teacher, or a violin teacher, or a choir teacher. While that music letter is fine, it is not an academic letter of recommendation. So the students should be very careful to see what it is that the individual colleges want, and make sure to ask the appropriate teachers. Okay. Along with the letters of recommendation, the guidance counselor will submit a high school profile and an official high school transcript. Okay. They need to come from the guidance counselor. They should not be a picture a student took on their phone and sent to the college. We will not count that as official. Okay. The last thing, and this is, been in the news for the last year or so, is standardized test scores, the SAT or the ACT. Most colleges in the United States were test optional this past year. If the student wanted to submit test scores, they could. They did not have to. Okay? And students would not be punished, in theory, if they didn't submit those test scores. Nobody would say to them, the student's a great student in the classroom, but they didn't submit scores, so there must be something wrong. They must have just done really poorly on the SAT. Most colleges will say they didn't submit them, fine. We are going to consider the rest of their application without them. Already, some schools have announced that they will not require test scores next year. Some schools haven't made a decision yet. So the students really need to look at each college they're applying to see if that school is going to require standardized test scores or not. If they do, you'll have to find a place to take the test and submit them. If they don't, then the student should really have a conversation with their guidance counselor and their parents about whether to submit them. Okay. So when a college gets all of this information, this is on the next slide here, we start to look at the students in a few different ways. We look at their academic candidacy. We look at what their grades were in the classroom. We look at what classes they took. We look at how engaged they are from what the teachers have to say about them and what the guidance counselor has to say about them. We're looking to see how they are in comparison to the rest of their high school class. I work with some schools up in Massachusetts where if you're getting Bs, which are certainly very fine grades, if you're a B student at those schools, you're in the bottom 10% of that school's graduating class each year. That's context that's important for us to see and for us to know about. Okay, not every school provides that, but we do our best to figure that out. Then there's the personal side of things. What does a student do when they're not in the classroom? That's what the extracurricular list is going to tell us. What else is a student bringing to the community, to the table? The essay could tell us that. An interview might tell us some more information. I tell students, if you just fill out the Common Applications extracurricular list, you're going to tell us what clubs you were involved in, if you held leadership, and how much each year you were involved in that. If you have an interview, you can expand on some of those items on your extracurricular list. I might see that you are the president of the environmental club, but through an interview or through letters of recommendation, I might learn what being the president really means and what it has entailed. And that's important for us for us in the admissions committee to be able to see. Okay. And then lastly, we have this overall fit. Is how well does a student fit in with the community? Do they want to study something that we have to offer? Do we think that they will continue to be involved in extracurricular activities? Do they fit certain priorities that the institution might have? Okay, that's where we start to look at that overall fit. And if we look at the next slide, we start to see how this all fits together. Okay, in an ideal world, all of the students who are applying and being admitted, or really being admitted, fall in that very little middle triangle. where the three circles overlap. The reality is that most students don't fall in there. Most students are going to fall in the sort of the oval sections between two of the different circles. That's okay as well. Others might just fall in one. And if that's the case, great. Okay, we're looking for students who fit at least one of these, preferably two. Okay. So there's a question in the chat. I'm going to take this one. If you have other questions at all, please go ahead and put them in there. We may be able to get to them right then. We may be able to do it later, but I'll address this one now because it is about test optional. Does it help the student if they've done well and submit their scores to a test optional institution? Test optional means if you want to submit the scores, you can, and they will be taken into consideration. So if you've done really well, it won't hurt. Will it help? I think saying yes, it will help means that there's a lot of weight placed on the standardized test scores. And I think the reality is colleges really don't place a lot of weight on those scores. Sometimes they help reinforce what we're seeing in the rest of the application. There are some instances, though, where I've seen really very strong students with very, very, very low test scores. And that helps me understand a bit more about the education they've gotten in the high school and how that really isn't as rigorous, and it really hasn't prepared them as well for a rigorous college education as one might otherwise think if we just saw grades. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight on the next slide is sort of think about three files. We're going to pretend this is a little bit of Mission Impossible, sort of. I'm forcing us to accept this challenge of listening and learning about three applicants, and we're going to decide who we want to admit, who we want to deny, and who we want to put on the wait list when all is said and done. Okay, and what you're going to see is that based on what you're reading, your decisions might change, and that's okay. Okay, so we're going to pretend we are Woodlands College, I think is what we are on the next slide there. Woodlands College. We're a small liberal arts school outside of Chicago with about 1,700 students. The students who apply to Woodlands are very strong students. They're in the top 15% of their class. For high schools that offer a class rank, a lot of them do not anymore, and that's okay. We only admit about a quarter of our students, okay? And then the last point is important. We meet 100% of need, okay? What that means is that if a family can only afford to pay $10,000 towards our total $80,000 cost, that's all they will be asked to pay. The remaining balance will be met with financial aid, a combination of need-based grants, loans, some work study, some merit scholarships, okay? If you don't meet 100% of need, the term is called gapping. So we might say in this case, you can afford to pay $10,000, you need $70,000 of financial aid, we'll give you $60,000, and you have to figure out how to come up with the rest if you really want to come to our school. Woodlands will not do that, okay? We meet 100% of need, but in order to do that and to be fair, we are need aware. And what that means is that for some students, we will take their ability to pay into consideration when we're making admissions decisions. Okay, so let's learn just a very brief bit about our three applicants here. We have Noah, Rosa, and Emma. Noah is a young man from Los Angeles. He goes to a very good public high school in his neighborhood. Okay, Rosa is from Houston, and she just attends the local high school where she lives. She doesn't really have any choices. She goes to a regular old local public high school. And then Emma is from Manhattan in New York City. She attends the tippy top private school in the city. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the academic, the personal, and then sort of the fit for each of these three. And after we're done with them, we're going to let everybody on the call here in the chat tell me who you would vote for, just based on what we're hearing here. So we'll start with the academic side of things because that's really the most important part. Okay, Noah. Noah has a 4.23 GPA. How do you get a GPA that's above a 4.0? Well, he's taking 9 advanced placement classes. The advanced placement classes at his high school are worth 5. They're on a 5-point scale instead of a 4-point scale. So an A in an advanced placement class is worth 5 points towards your GPA. An A in a normal class is worth 4 points. Okay, so that's how he's got above a 4.0. So he's got that GPA. He's just outside the top 10 5% of his class. Again, remember, we, what, 2/3 of our applicants are in the top 15%. Okay. So he's doing well in the classroom. He's challenging himself with 9 advanced placement classes. And out of 1,600, he scored a 1510 on his SATs. Okay. Seems like a pretty strong student. Okay. Then we have Rosa. Rosa has a 4.0 grade point average. Her school only offers 2 advanced placement classes, but she's not taking either of them. Okay. She is certainly in the top 10%. She's actually in the top 5% of her class. So she's a very strong student, but you see her standardized testing down there is a 520 on the evidence-based reading and writing and a 500 on the math. Okay. That is on the low side. There's no doubt. I didn't put this on one of the earlier slides, but our SAT averages for those who submit is about a 1350. Okay. So Rosa, a good student, testing is not quite as strong as our averages, or certainly as Noah is. Emma is a 3.0 student. Her school, again, it's that top private school in Manhattan. They don't offer a class rank. They also don't offer advanced placement classes. They have said very clearly on their class profile, we do not want our teachers to be forced to teach to that specific curriculum. We want to give them the flexibility to teach what they want. But they also offer a table of how the students do on their AP exams. And the students do very, very well. The students are incredibly well prepared to take AP exams, even though they don't have those AP classes. Okay. The profile also shows a table of how the GPA breaks down. And as I said earlier, a 3.0 at this school is really very modest in their class. She really is. She's in the bottom 15% of the students in her grade in terms of academic performance. Okay. The last thing to note, Emma does not offer us any test scores. She just didn't take them. She doesn't say why. She just chose not to take them. Okay. So here's our basic information. Noah is a 4.23, just outside the top 10%, but really challenging himself with very nice test scores. Rosa is a 4.0. She's a straight A student, but again, she's not got a little bit of extra weight because she's not taking the APs. In the top 5% of her class, very modest testing. And then there's Emma, who with her B average is down towards the bottom of her class in Manhattan. So families, it is your turn to vote. Okay, go ahead in the chat. Tell us who you would vote for to admit. Who would you admit based solely on their academic factors? Noah, Rosa, or Emma? Okay, we have 5 votes to take Noah based on the academics. Okay, good, thank you. I think we all look at this and we see Noah is a great student, and he's pushing himself, and he's a great student, and that's really important. We want students who are challenging themselves, because those more rigorous classes are going to be closer to the rigor that students are going to find at our school. Okay, so we want somebody who's pushing themselves and doing well. Great. So now we're going to turn to the personal side of things. And this is where we're going to slow down a little bit because there's more to go off of. And so what I'm going to share here is a bit about their extracurriculars. I'm going to read their essays, and we're going to see what the recommendation letters have to say about them. So for Noah, Noah is all about some of the performing arts. Okay, he's really into acting. He's into film. He plays cello in his high school orchestra. He also has a pet sitting business. These are the things that take up a lot of his time. You know, he's in the orchestra. They've got to rehearse. They've got performances. He's been in a few short films that he and his friends have made. He really is interested in that. And the pet sitting takes a while. Okay. The recommendation letters are solid, I think is a fair way to say it. The teachers support him, but they're not really going over the top and saying just how amazing he is. They do have some comments about him being a little bit disruptive in class. He tends to distract people. He gets people off topic. Sorry about the typo in there. He's good in class, but he's not great. There's a little concern there that maybe he isn't quite mature, hasn't quite matured yet. Again, we know that, and this is a general statement, we know that the brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25 or 26 in terms of maturing. So, a little flag like that is not the end of the world, but the teachers do want to share with us that, maybe he has a little bit more growing up to do. He needs to learn that he needs to control himself in class and focus. Okay. So now I'm going to read his essay for you. Okay. Noah's left brain. Listen up, right brain. Noah's got a college essay that's pretty important. So I think we need to prioritize things and work together on this one. Noah's right brain. Not now, left brain. I'm watching the episode of Man vs. Food where Adam Richman attempts to eat a 190-pound hamburger. Go do our AP stats homework or something. Left brain. Does Adam Richman even weigh 190 pounds? Of course he does. Never mind. Look, this essay is really important. I was thinking that maybe we could talk about how the competition stemming from comparisons between Noah and his twin sister have shaped him into the man he is today. Right brain. Ugh. That's a snooze fest. Hear me out. Noah loves pierogies, right? Left. Actually, it's pierogi, but yes, he does. Right, exactly. He loves pierogies, and he's passionate about screenwriting. So I think we should write our essay as a screenplay for the hit movie Brody Pierogi versus Professor Poland. A warm, buttery glow arises over the plate of pierogies as Brody jumps into action. He takes one last look at Professor Poland before spraying him with a hot yet undeniably delicious stream of potato cheddar filling. I know we're both mouth-watering dumplings right now, but you're about to be toast. Professor Poland falls back into the frying pan, sizzled. Left brain. But wait, pierogi, you're Polish. Why would Brody Pierogi be fighting the professor of his homeland? Right. How do you think World War I started? Left. The Archduke of Austria was assassinated. Did you not pay attention for the last 5 years of our history classes? Right. That was your job, hombre. I paid attention during acting class. Left. Can you even name any of the last 10 presidents? Right. If George Clooney wasn't in there somewhere, something is truly wrong with this country. Left. You're unbelievable. Anyways, I'm not sure colleges will be too accepting of Brody Pierogi, so I have a real idea. It's a narrative that follows Noah during his time living in Vietnam for half a year. Maybe it could go something like this. As a 14-year-old, I never expected my mom to tell our family that we'd be moving to Vietnam Vietnam for most of the school year because her Fulbright grant proposal was accepted. But what I once dreaded turned out to be one of the greatest experiences of my life. My whole perspective on what privilege meant. Right. You thought you could stop me, but I'm undefriable. The camera spins 180 degrees to reveal that Professor Poland has risen from the ashy frying pan with a newfound girth and vengeance. Left. I was actually trying to tell you my idea. Right. Your idea is boring, dude. The people want action. The people want suspense. The people want Brody Pierogi. Go take your life-changing Vietnam nonsense to Ken Burns. Left. Ken Burns has won 4 Emmys and 2 Grammys, making that one of the nicest things you've ever said to me. Right. You know who's won more Emmys than that? Famous action movie director Michael Bay. Left. Michael Bay has won 0 Emmys. Right. You think you're the smart one all of a sudden? Left. I literally am a smart one. Right. Whatever. I still think my essay idea is better than yours. Left. Well, we need a way to get our ideas to come together or we'll never get this done. Right. I suppose we could form a compromise of sorts by taking half your Vietnam idea and throwing it in the garbage so we can use 100% of my idea with Brody Pierogi and Professor Poland. Left. We're already at 614 words. Let's just call it quits. Right. Thank you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to get back to watching Adam Richman eat a burger the size of a baby hippo. So that's Noah's college essay. Okay. Different. Maybe not the best. I don't know what it really tells us about him, but this is what he chose to write about. Okay. So we're going to move to Rosa next. Rosa works 30 hours a week as a cashier. She has responsibility for watching over her younger siblings after school. She has some leadership in school as the class president for 2 years, but other than that, she really isn't able to do much at the school because she has to watch her siblings and she works. The recommendation letters are among the best that we have seen from a student this year. The principal, her employer, her teachers say that she is one of the absolute greatest students and people they have ever seen. Okay. And here is her essay. My life is full of numbers. 4261. Ask me the code of any fruit or vegetable, and I won't be able to tell you, but put a number pad in front of me and my finger muscles kick in. Celery, 4577. Peaches 4044, coconut my favorite 4261. I currently work at a grocery store called Sellers Brothers. It took only 3 weeks working there to recognize 95% of the customers. They all live in my neighborhood. 3. It takes me 3 minutes to walk from my apartment to work. Even though I live close to Sellers Brothers, my mother still meets me after work because it's too dangerous to walk home alone at 11:30 at night. Every night on our walk home, we pass by groups of drunk men scattered around sitting on the curb or leaning against cars, often getting into fights with each other. In my neighborhood, violence and robbery are common. A few months ago, a group of young men tied a woman to her chair in her living room while they stole all her belongings. At my apartments, there are always people watching and counting the number of people living inside, waiting for when no one is home to strike. 8. The average age of kids who shop by themselves at the store. From their purchases, it's always easy to tell their mission. If they have vegetables, meats, or fruits, their parents sent them. If they have a bag of chips and a soda in hand, they're on their way home from school. Children at Sellers Brothers usually pay with a Lone Star EBT card, a card that looks like a credit card but acts like food stamps. Unlike some adults, children don't feel the need to hide the card in shame, which honestly makes my job easier. Adults automatically slide their EBT card in the credit card machine, not realizing that they have to tell me the type of payment card they're using so I can input it into the machine. In my work, I've seen a range of responses when I ask customers about their type of payment. Some customers tell me verbally with no hesitation, while others discreetly flash their card and quickly put it away. Personally, I don't see the problem. My mom doesn't mind telling people we use food stamps, but growing up in my community, I'm used to people lying about how much they earn. I see people pose next to cars and take pictures pretending it was theirs. Around Sellers Brothers, it's rare to see people admit that they receive help. 15. On most days, my break lasts only 15 minutes. During my breaks, I'm usually in the break room finishing my homework for the next day or reading short stories for my dual credit English class. 15 minutes is not enough time for me to finish, so sometimes I bring my calculus homework with me to the register, pulling it out from its hiding spot in the store binder when there are no customers. The calculator function on my phone is not nearly as good as the one on the graphing calculator I use in class, but it works. When I worked 40-hour weeks, my grades were dropping because I didn't have enough time to finish my work. So even though I knew I would be taking a pay cut, I asked my manager to give me Tuesdays and Thursdays off to attend AP tutorials. Despite all these numbers, I know my life comes down to one. One is the number of people in my family who will be a college graduate in the next 4 years. One is the number of people leaving Sellers Brothers and my neighborhood. One is the number of people who make this possible for me. I know I control the numbers in my life. I'll let that sink in for a second. Here's a young woman who doesn't have the same opportunities. It's clear from what I put on the screen and from this essay. Personally, she is remarkable. She's a great writer. And I think this is the first time I've read this essay out loud that I haven't had to sort of pause in that last paragraph. I'm getting better at reading it. It is never easy to read about Rosa. So we'll turn to Emma. Emma spends her time doing two things. Thank you, Michelle, for saying that. So Emma's really focusing on two things. She is very much into field hockey, and she is hugely committed to community service. She has traveled overseas a few times to volunteer to do community service projects. In the classroom, she's quiet. She's a valuable member of groups, but she is definitely not a leader. Maybe there was a lack of confidence earlier, but she is definitely getting more confident through her field hockey. Her essay is about outsmarting Santa. When I was in third grade, I tried to outsmart Santa. Like most kids at that age, I had a creeping suspicion that it was not a fat man in a red suit who puts presents under the tree every year, but my parents. Unlike most kids, I decided that the way to solve my problem and get answers was not to simply refer to a secondary source, like my parents or the internet, but to generate my own primary source by collecting my own data. Of course, I didn't know what any of those words meant as a 9-year-old. However, you don't really need fancy vocabulary to do basic research. I wanted answers, and I knew I could get them by manipulating the variables of the situation and seeing what happened. I resolved that year, I would tell nobody what I wanted for Christmas other than the big man himself. That way, if I got what I wanted, I could be assured that Santa was truly real. And if it wasn't, that my parents were lying to me. I would ensure that this happened by leaving a note under the Christmas tree on Christmas Eve. Unfortunately, my data was skewed by what scientists would call an outlier and what most other people would call a small miracle. My dad had just so happened to have gotten me what I wrote on that note, a brown and white Juju pet hamster. On a whim, he had purchased it after hearing another parent that Juju pets were the hot new thing that every kid wanted that year. Indeed, the little robotic animals had been flying off the shelves for months leading up to Christmas, and by the time my dad made it to Walmart, there were very few left. The only model left was, by some cosmic coincidence, a brown and white hamster. He bought it, I opened it on Christmas Day, and my belief in the North Pole's magical occupants was reaffirmed for another 2 years. Although my Santa experiment was foiled by errant data, the fact that I had the idea to conduct it in the first place was very much not a deviation from the norm for me. I've always been intensely curious and a very analytical person. The Santa situation is one of almost countless instances in my life where I've asked myself a question and then set out answering it. Learning about the world around me has always been something I've pursued fiercely, through everything from cataloging the bugs I found in my backyard to reading books on subjects that piqued my interest. As time passed, that interest in learning more about the world has led pretty naturally into a passion for science. After all, the objective of science is to answer a question by gathering data and then using logic to draw a conclusion. That's exactly what I was doing in trying to bust Santa, even if I didn't really realize it at the time. That's why science is really fun. I get to do what I do best and embark on an epic quest to answer all the intriguing questions I can think of. These days, I get to help answer really cool, complicated questions like, how can we use stem cells to regenerate blood vessels around the heart? And how do squirrels produce so much force when they jump? Because I work in both a cardiology and biomechanics lab, that never stops being super exciting to me. That's why I want to pursue a career in research. Getting paid to find answers to the questions I'm curious about sounds like a dream to me. Learning about everything science has to offer in a higher education setting is a thrilling prospect, and I can't wait to keep doing what I've always done even more seriously. So that's Emma's essay. Okay, now we're getting a little harder. So, I want to do this based just on the personal factors. Forget the academic side, just on the personal factors. Who would you vote for? Okay. Most people would go with Rosa. Um, some interest in Emma as well. I see that nobody is voting for Noah, which is a reality that sometimes we face. Um, it is hard. Marjorie said, "Oh, geez, now this is hard" in our chat. It is hard. Um, the it's going to get harder as we go to the next one, though. So you're right. Noah is creative. He took a different approach to writing the essay. Um, but as I stack him up with Rosa's in particular, for me, I have a clear preference towards Rosa. Yes, Noah's creative. Rosa is honest. It's emotional. It's stirring. And the essay is the student's opportunity to put their best foot forward. Do we think this is the best? What do we learn about Noah? This is hard to do virtually. We learn. I think we learn more about Rosa and Emma than we do about Noah through the essay. Emma, we learn about the science interest, and it started young and how she has this sort of this scientific mind. Rosa, we learn about what her life is like when she's not in the classroom. I don't know that I really learned much about Noah as a person. He likes to watch Man versus Beast eating a 190-pound hamburger. He knows why World War I started. I'm not sure that I really learn that much about Noah from this. Let me pause. I forgot to do this before. Are there questions about the academic side of things or about the personal side of things that people want to ask? If you don't want to put it in the chat, if you want to unmute yourself and just ask, that's fine too. We are a small group here. Okay, why don't we let's go to the third factor. And then after we're done, maybe we'll stop the screen sharing. We can turn on cameras and we can, talk about this a little bit more. So this last part is sort of fit, holistic review. How do we put it all together? So in Noah's case, some of the things we're going to look at are demonstrated interest, um, other factors that we might know about the school or about the student, and then financial aid. Again, we are a need-aware institution, so financial aid is important to know about. So Noah, Noah did visit campus. He came from Los Angeles to Chicago, so he's showing that he's interested in Woodlands. He came, he visited, he took a tour, he interviewed here on campus with one of our student workers. He also emailed our regional admissions counselor to say hello, introduce himself, um, and it's just a way of touching base and showing that he is interested. Um, in the world of selective admissions, colleges want to admit students who they know are going to enroll. Okay, a visit to campus, reaching out to your counselor is a way of saying, I am more interested in your school. Okay. Um, an additional factor for Noah is that his high school is called a feeder school for Woodlands. There are typically 4 or 5 students each year who enroll at Woodlands from his high school. Okay, we would love to keep that relationship going. To enroll 4 or 5 students, we might be admitting 10 or 15. We don't know. Um, so Noah, we want to keep that factor going with the relationship with the school. And then lastly, in terms of finances, his parents are school teachers in Los Angeles. They can afford to pay about $35,000 out of the $80,000 that the total cost is. So we would be giving them about $45,000 of financial aid. Okay. Again, that may not be the sole factor, but it's something we want to look at. Rosa. Rosa is, I'm going to start at the bottom in the financial aid column. Rosa is going to be the first student in her family to go to college. She's actually going to be the first student in her community to go to college. Her father is incarcerated. Her mother is a cashier. Again, she works also 30 hours a week. She is what's called a Pell eligible student. She can afford to pay absolutely nothing towards the cost of enrolling. Okay. She hasn't had any contact with us. Some of this shouldn't be surprising because of the middle factor. Her high school is in one of the worst neighborhoods in Houston. It is the school that you just go to. You don't really have any choice. The counselors there are not college counselors. They are guidance counselors. They are dealing with truancy, with discipline issues. She doesn't have the guidance that a Noah or, as we're going to see, an Emma probably have to know that she should reach out. Okay. But again, if you remember, a straight A student, not challenging herself as much, but the school doesn't have a lot, and we have the really compelling personal story. Okay, then we turn to Emma. Emma, Emma visited with the regional representative for New York City when that person came to New York, to Manhattan. Emma did come and visit and did an information session. She didn't have an interview while on campus. She did one with an alum in New York. That's fine. Again, showing some interest. Additional factors, again, this is the top private school. She is the top field hockey recruit for the team. The coach has told us that she's going to help the team make the conference tournament, and that after a couple years, she's going to be an all-conference player. Okay, Emma needs no financial aid. You can see a little bit about her family. Her father and her grandmother both graduated from Woodlands. The athletic facility on our campus is named for her grandparents. Okay, she is very well connected. The family is very wealthy. She is not going to need any financial aid. So we're going to do our voting one last time. Based on the fit and holistic review only, just on this last part, who would you admit? Noah, Rosa, or Emma? Great. So I think we have most people who have put down an opinion here. It's interesting. Nobody chose Rosa. That is fair. And we had one vote for Noah, and then the rest were for Emma. So, what I often say here is typically when I do this last slide, we have a much more even distribution between Emma and Noah. It's almost it's almost the same number of votes. And I say, for those of you who chose Noah as the dean of admissions, you get to call Emma's family and tell them that you're not taking her. Even with the legacies and the named building for her grandparents, we still didn't choose to take her. It's said tongue in cheek, but it's true because there are factors that you just can't control as a student. And every college and university is going to have an applicant like Emma, who academically is not really there, but who you admit for one reason or another. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is, I have the presentation up on my other screen. Can we stop the screen sharing and maybe turn on cameras if people are willing so that we can do the last part face to face? Can we do that, Desi? Sorry, not Desi, Alicia.
I think I just turned mine on.
Yes, sure. Know. Wonderful.
I can't even tell people can see me. Oh, look at everybody. Everyone. Hi, everybody.
I see a few of you there now.
And I get if everyone doesn't want to turn on their camera.
Yeah, you absolutely don't have to.
I understand.
not gonna force anybody to. But like this last part is sort of like the takeaways. What do we get out of all of this? Okay, we've looked at these three students from very different angles. And we could admit any one of them for a variety of reasons. When we put it all together, it gets a little bit more complicated because we like some things about Emma, but not other things. And the same is true for Rosa, and the same is true for Noah. And so the first point that I would encourage us all to take away from this is that we never really know what the admissions committee is going to decide to do. Okay, there's never a guarantee in admissions these days. Harvard admitted 3% of its applicants this year. If you are a student who has straight A's and perfect standardized test scores and you don't get in, why is that? I have no idea. But clearly, the Harvard admissions committee saw something in another student that made them stand out in a way that you just didn't. Okay? It happens. It's unfortunate, and it can be a challenge for students to come to terms with hearing no, but there are lots of factors at play, and some of them you just don't know about. Okay? Our school, a school, could be looking for a left-handed tuba-playing quarterback. And if your child is not a left-handed tuba-playing quarterback, sorry. Okay, that's a very extreme example. But, it could be an example as simple as the men's soccer team right now has 11 players on it. They need more. And so at the end, the people that the soccer team is hoping to get admitted to yield, they might get a bump because the team needs more players to actually field a team and not to forfeit their entire season the next year. Right? Colleges and universities don't publish this list of priorities that they have, but it exists in some way or another. And there are decisions that are there are decisions made based on those priorities. Okay. It is, again, there are so many more students applying to colleges these days than colleges can possibly admit. So they have to make difficult decisions, and they're not always in a high school's mind or in a family's mind. They're not always the right decisions, but the college has to make those difficult decisions. There's a good question here. Should we encourage our children to get their heart set on a specific school? You absolutely can, but I think it's important to also remind them that it may not work. There are plenty of students who go into the college search process saying, Oberlin, is my absolute number one choice. Beyond all doubt, I want to be there. They did a visit in March of their junior year. They loved it. They did another visit in the summer. They loved it. They came back in the fall and something happened. Maybe their visit that time was only okay. Maybe they spent an evening in the residence halls and they didn't like it. The person they were housed with, they didn't connect with. Maybe that student then went to McAllister College for a visit in St. Paul, Minnesota. There they had a great visit. Their heart changes. Okay. It's okay to have your heart set on a school, but it's also important for students, 17 and 18-year-olds to realize that there is not one perfect school for them. There are many schools that could be absolutely right. What is important is what you do while you are on campus. Frank Bruni, a New York Times columnist, wrote a book about this. I think it's called "It's Not Where You Go, but It's What You Do." Okay. There are lots of wonderful colleges in the world, not just in the United States, but in the world. Many of them have very well-known names, but many of them don't. And you can get just as good, if not a better education at some of those schools that don't have the really well-known names because of what you or what your child chooses to do there, because of the classes they take, the faculty members they talk to, the doors that get opened, the peers that they meet, and what they learn from them. Your student may do more of that at not a brand name school. And so it's okay to have your heart set on a specific school. But if you don't get into that school, it's important to realize that there are lots of other amazing places out there where students can be incredibly, incredibly, incredibly happy. I really do feel that too many students these days choose schools either based on the name or the ranking or where all their friends are going. I remember when I used to recruit in New Jersey, I had people who would say to me, "I'm not going to go west across the Delaware River into Pennsylvania, much less go to Ohio, because that's like the middle of nowhere. But I'm willing to go 10 hours up into New England." And, that says something. To me, that says what matters to that person, that family, or that student is location, is geography, is the only good schools are in a certain part of the country. And Ohio is a great place if you're looking at it from an airplane window, but not if you're actually stepping foot on the ground. And we all live in Ohio right now. We know this is an amazing, amazing state. Okay? But there are some people who think it's a flyover state. And so what COVID has really helped do is bring every college into your home. Because your sons or daughters can go online and sign up for a virtual information session or a virtual tour of campus with literally any college in the United States. And they might not be thinking that Iowa is a place that they would want to go to school, but they might do that information session for Grinnell and say, "My mind has been blown. This is an amazing place. This is where I want to go. And when I can go and visit in person, I want to go there. And maybe I want to apply early decision." But you can do this from the comfort of your living room. If one of the families here was to take their son on a college road trip, or 2 or 3, to see all the schools they want to see, you might have to spend 10 days in New England. You might have to also go another trip to Michigan and Illinois and Wisconsin, and maybe take a flight to the West Coast. That's a lot of time for you to take off from work. Start thinking about how much money that would cost. 2 airline tickets for each of these trips, maybe, rental car, hotel, food, gas. Oh my goodness. My son wants to get a sweatshirt from each place we go. Now it's even more expensive. Okay. Now you can do it all from your living room, and you can narrow it down a lot easier and still get a really good sense of what these colleges have to offer you. Um, I can safely say Oberlin's going to continue doing virtual stuff even after we go back to whatever normal is going to be. I would hope that other schools do also, and if they don't, they may not really be looking to appeal to as many students as they possibly could. I have really gone off on a tangent from what I was starting to say, but that's okay, because I think I've covered almost all the points here. I would say two other points. Standardized testing it's a real difficult thing to deal with these days. The question of should you or should you not submit scores is a conversation that families need to have with college counselors. Colleges should not be recommending whether a student submits scores to them or not. My advice would be if your scores are within the middle 50% range of a university or college or higher, consider sending them. But I can't say that if they're below the middle 50%, you shouldn't. And I'll give you an example. I recruit students in Cleveland from the CMSD. The average ACT score there is like a 15. That's really modest. If I see a student who's getting a 24 or 25 from a CMSD school, that's below Oberlin's middle 50%. Our middle 50% is about 28 to 31. But that 25 is going to make me feel really good about a student's ability to do the work in a more challenging curriculum, assuming that their grades are good. In that case, I might want to say to a student, submit those scores. They're going to help us understand that we think you might be able to do the work. So there's no clear-cut answer for whether you should submit test scores. Okay, so we have a question here. At what point is the college selling the student or the student selling the school? How can you judge the college's interest in the student? That is an amazing question. It's a very hard question. So up until from the moment a student signs up to be on a college's mailing list until May 1st of their senior year, when they have to submit a matriculation deposit, a college is selling itself. A college is trying to say, here's what we have to offer you. Here's why we think you should look at our school. Here are the different programs we have to offer, whether they're academic or extracurricular or musical or research, whatever it is. We want to get as much information into your hands as we possibly can so that you can decide whether this is the right place for you. Okay. I'm going to say April 1st. That's sort of the day when colleges release decisions. At that point, the power dynamic shifts. Up until then, the college is the one making the decision. As soon as the students have an offer of admission, we are begging. We are on bended knee saying, please, please, please send us your money. Enroll at our school. We really want you to be here. We're still selling our school. But we're doing so with the expressed purpose of getting you to enroll. Okay. What I would say is students shouldn't try to gauge how interested a college is in them, because your children are going to get a lot of mailings and emails. Who knows? There's going to be so much that your child gets that you're just going to delete emails. You're going to throw things in the garbage or the recycling. We spend more money than we should on glitzy brochures. We are spending very little in the mail these days because we know it's so expensive. But your child's going to get a lot of emails. Yes, we're interested in your child, but it's part of what we do to get them to apply and then hopefully enroll. What's really most important, I think, is for colleges to try and figure out how interested the student is in our school. At Oberlin, we know that our yield on regular decision students who we admit is about 20%. 4 out of every 5 students is going to say no to us. Someone might say, You know what? I got into Oberlin and Ohio State. I want Ohio State. I want that big community. I want to be in Columbus. I want to go to the Horseshoe for football games. I want to be in a fraternity. Fine. Others might say it's between Oberlin and Williams. Williams is ranked number 1 or 2 in the U.S. News and World Report. I'm going there. It's a better school, even though I'm not getting any financial aid from them, and I might get a merit scholarship from Oberlin. What we're trying to figure out is who's going to enroll. We don't know, and so we really have to try and get everybody interested. It's hard. It's a lot of work. This year, it's a lot of evenings spent in front of my computer, sitting at my basement desk, talking to students on webinars or on the phone, or on face-to-face, admitted student meetings. It's tough, but that's really what happens. That last month, the students are in control. And if a student has a bad experience with an institution, what often happens is they just ghost the school. They don't even bother to tell the school they're not coming. They just don't respond to anything. That happens. It's frustrating, but we know it happens. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I sort of addressed that one. The next question: if you check out a college virtually and like what you see, what are the next steps? Depends where the school is. It depends what time of the year it is. It depends what the school is offering. In normal times, I'm going to just say 3 years ago. Well, you wouldn't know. Forget that. That doesn't work because you couldn't have checked the school out virtually 3 years ago. So let's say right now that you check out a school, you like what you see. What you'll want to do is look over the school's website, see if they have any sense of what their programming might be over the summer. They might not have anything. They might have, maybe they do have a little bit of something. So depending on where they are, you could go and take part in something on campus. A college might only be offering campus tours. If it's close by, you could drive and go do a campus tour. For example, I'm just going to use Oberlin as an example. Right now, we are doing on-campus, in-person tours for admitted students. Starting May 1st, we're going to do them for juniors or sophomores. Okay? But we have some restrictions in place. Everybody has to be masked, including our tour guide. We are limiting the tours to 2 families and no more than 10 people total in a group, and that includes the tour guide. So we're keeping those safety protocols in place. We are not going into any buildings. It's literally an exterior tour of campus that students can take. But a lot of students appreciate that we even have that available because there are colleges that haven't done any of those in 12 months. As you move into the fall, some colleges may be traveling and talking to students. Other colleges may be doing more on campus. Again, colleges will have some sort of page about visit opportunities on their admissions office website. You can see what sorts of stuff they have there, and you can make a decision about what you want to do. Some colleges in the fall may not even be open for visitors. It's just going to depend on where they are. And it's going to depend on variants on this virus. It's going to depend on what the students are doing on a college campus. You just don't know. I think that more colleges will be opening up in the fall. Other opportunities in addition to a tour or a visit, you could see if they might be doing interviews for seniors. This year at Oberlin, we did Zoom interview Saturdays with a large number of alumni. There were some days we had like 300 interviews happen in the span of 8 hours in a big Zoom meeting. And it worked pretty darn well. Not perfect, but it worked pretty darn well. So that's something else you can do to show that students are interested in those schools. How are colleges going to know if you visited on your own if they're not doing tours? They won't. That's a good question. They're not going to know that you actually visited campus. However, if the college has a supplemental question that says, why are you interested in attending our school? Students can write about a visit they took to campus. A student can say, my family and I drove to campus during COVID. Nothing official was happening, but we walked around. We We said hello to some students, but we walked around and we liked the look of the place. So that's something you can do. Other questions people have?
Josh.
Yes.
Good question. So Moira and I are talking behind the scenes. In this instance, talking about if like a family goes and visits the college, would emailing the rep before or after the visit, would that be able to go into the record of a student visiting campus, or at least having some sort of contact?
Absolutely. Anytime I get an email from a student that is something other than thank you, for the information, I will reply and I will copy an email address we have so that email goes into the student's record and then we would see it when they apply for admission. It never hurts to reach out to the regional representative who works with Northeast Ohio. Say hello. Hey, I'm coming for campus. Do you have any recommendations for what I should go see? Let's say, for example, that you were going to go look at, what's a good school? Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York. You might say, your son might say to the Northern Ohio representative, or maybe it's just the Ohio representative, hey, we're coming through. I know you're not doing any official tours, but we're just going to walk around campus. What are a couple places you think I should go see that I might be able to get into? Is there something in the town that I should go do? Something like that. It's a way to say hello. It's a way to show that you're interested in a little bit, that you're coming to campus, even if it's not officially through the admissions office. It also starts that conversation because you might learn something really interesting about a spot on campus. You might be able to follow up and say, oh, you told me I should go look at this statue. I did. Well, what's your interest in? Oh, I did a little research on my own and I saw that this was a person who was known for this is the first woman who enrolled at the school. Something like that. You can start a conversation. Okay, another question in here. Good. So, how are decisions communicated? That's a really good question. There are a variety of options, and they will change based on the application type that your child files. So, there are 3 different application types that students can file. And Alicia and Moira can correct me if I'm wrong. So there's regular decision. Very simple. That's usually a January 1st or a January 15th deadline. You are saying, I like your school. It's not necessarily my top choice, but I'm interested in your college. Students who apply regular decision will hear from the college typically by April 1st, and they'll usually hear one of 3 decisions: admit, waitlist, or deny. Most places release decisions electronically through an applicant portal. They often are also releasing a paper decision on the same day. Okay. Students have from whenever they get their letter until May 1st to tell one school, I am coming to you, and then to notify the other schools that they're not coming. Okay. Then there's early decision. Okay. Early decision is binding. If you are admitted, you are enrolling. Okay. Some schools have 1 early decision deadline. Others have 2 early decision deadlines. There's no difference between them other than a different deadline. One gives you a little bit more time to decide what you want to do. If you apply early decision, the decisions on your application there are 3. There's admit, there's deny, there's defer. What a defer means is that we didn't make a decision. We're going to consider you with all the rest of the regular decision applicants. You're not committed to coming if you're admitted, but we tend to think that you're probably going to come because you told us you wanted to be at our school more than anywhere else. Okay? That's early decision. Then there's early action. Early action is a non-binding early decision, early plan. Actually, there's a fourth kind of application. I forgot. We'll get to that. Early action is not binding. You apply early, you find out early, often by December 1st, but you wouldn't have to tell the school until May 1st. Okay. The last application type is a rolling admissions school. You apply and you tend to hear within a month. Okay. In some of those cases at rolling schools, it's better to apply early because if you apply later, there may not be spots left. You just don't know. Okay. So those are the application types. Most schools are now releasing decisions electronically as well as by paper. It's nice to get that email saying, hey, there's an update in your applicant portal. And then you open up your portal and there's confetti falling on your screen that says, congratulations, you're in. But students also like to have that mailbox moment where they get to hold like a big, thick envelope in their hands and they get to like look at everything on paper and know that they've been admitted. Yeah, so hopefully that helped.
When you're applying to a college, do you know what type of application process they go through somehow?
Well, you're choosing. The student chooses the application type that they want to apply under. So a student is saying, okay, I'm applying to Kenyon College. My choices are early decision 1 or early decision 2 or regular decision. And the student says, I want to apply as a regular decision applicant. The college never makes that choice. The student is the one who makes that choice. Yeah. For rolling, do you have to make your decision by May 1? Alicia, Moira, can you help me with that?
Hold on. There we go.
Yes. So you don't necessarily have to make your decision by May 1, but you're kind of risking things. And there's one other piece that I think is important for rolling schools, and that is if you are applying for financial aid, you may have missed the money if you wait too long. So it's not only important in terms of them having space, it's important in terms of them still not having given away all their money. And so you really want to do those things earlier, and then you still have time to decide. But seriously, students should decide by May 1, and they should deposit at one school, even if they're hoping that that wait list school is going to choose them off the wait list, right? You still have to deposit at one school, so you know one school and one school only. That's vital.
Please,
and
just one school.
Yeah, no double deposits ever. It's completely unethical. And then if somebody takes you off the wait list, then you have a couple of things that you need to look at as well. Like, some schools will still fully fund you if they take you off of the wait list, but many of them will not. And so then you have to decide, what that means for you and your family. So yeah, did that answer your question? The boys, by May 1, they should deposit at one school.
Yes. So we had a question here. Next steps, if you like your tour, who should you contact next? It's a good question. If your son is interested in playing at the varsity level in college, I would absolutely encourage him to get in touch with a coach. It's possible the coach may have already been in touch with him, depending on the sport. Most coaches will have some sort of questionnaire survey to fill out on their website, or that they can email a student to get a feel for things. For cross country, is it important for a coach to come and watch your son run, or is it more important just to know the times? Probably the times. But if your son plays basketball, probably more important for the coach to see your son play. So you can certainly have your son reach out to the coach to say, hey, I loved my visit to campus, but I'm also interested in playing basketball. How can I work with you? What do we do next? That's not something the admissions office is going to really be able to help with. I would I would not encourage families to reach out to the dean of admissions. Our dean of admissions gets, I don't know, 100 emails a day. He has enough trouble responding to the ones that his staff send him. Sometimes just because he has so many emails. So what I would say is that the people to reach out to are either the regional representative or maybe the campus. There's usually a campus visit email address. Campus visit office within an admissions office oversees all the on-campus visit opportunities, whether it's overnights if the school is doing it, it's tours, it's other programs. So if you're interested in doing something more, the campus visit office might be able to help the student figure out what to do next. I think those are the best places to start. There are other options if you want to learn more information. Let's say your son is interested in a school, but they want to get more information about the biology department. Okay, there are a couple of ways you could go. What I encourage students to do is reach out to the chairperson of the department and say, "Hi, I'm a prospective student. I have some questions about studying biology at your school." Hopefully, that professor will respond. Okay, if they don't, maybe email the department administrative assistant and say, "Hi, I have some questions. Is there a faculty member who could help me with this?" I can give you one or two pieces of information about biology at Oberlin. I can't tell you about the entire program. Only the faculty in that program can do that. There is one other option. Most admissions offices have students who work there as on-campus jobs. They might lead information sessions. They might do interviews. They might just be there to answer questions. And so you could certainly reach out to an admissions office and say, "Are there any students I could talk to about this area of academic interest or about something socially as well?" That's an option also for somebody to reach out to get more information. Do colleges indicate if they fully fund or not? They certainly better. I think the schools that meet 100% of need will tell you that very clearly. If you do a quick glance over, well, I'm wondering, actually, let me take a look. Schools that meet one. Okay, so I just did a Google search on schools that meet 100% of demonstrated financial need. And I got College Vine has a blog that provides a list. Prep Scholar has a blog that provides a list. Money.com, 75 colleges that meet full financial need. So you can find it easily that way. If you can't find it easily that way or on a school's website, I would just ask. You could either email admissions or financial aid about that. So we talked about being need aware. The opposite of need aware is need blind. Okay. And what that means is that students are admitted regardless of how much financial aid they need. The admissions office knows nothing at all about a student's ability to pay or their financial need. According to CapEx, there are about 100 colleges that are need blind for admissions for US students. That's not a lot of schools. And they're predictable ones. You've got Ivies, you've got MIT, you've got Stanford, you've got places like Williams and Middlebury and Amherst. There aren't a lot more. So it should be easy to find. If it's not, a quick phone call to a school, without a doubt, will tell you. And if you get somebody on the phone who's like, "I don't know," that's bad. It could be somebody who's literally on their first day of the job, but hopefully they learned that as part of their training. Other questions? Well, it's been my pleasure to answer questions for you. Let me just really quickly, in case people have other questions that they want to ask later. I'm happy to answer questions. I have been working with the counseling team at St. Ed's for a decade at least, in my time here at Oberlin. Um, I remember James Knight, if any of you are familiar with him, from when he worked in Oberlin's admissions office way back when. Um, so, oh, good question. COVID vaccine requirements. That's a good one. At this point, every school is different. Um, there are some colleges that are requiring a vaccine, and proof of it. Others are not. Others are strongly recommending that students get vaccinated. Um, there are any school that requires vaccinations is going to have to be prepared for students who ask for exceptions. There are religious reasons somebody might not get one. There are medical reasons somebody might not be able to get a vaccine. And a college has to be ready to make exceptions. Any college that says you either get it or you may not enroll here is setting themselves up for a lawsuit. You just can't do that. I think there are not a lot of colleges that are saying you must have it yet. I think most schools are saying we strongly require it, but there are advantages to getting it. And I'm going to use Oberlin as an example again. Right now, we have a daily health survey that every student, faculty, and staff member takes. And if you're planning on coming to campus, you have to answer a couple questions, and you have to take your temperature and report it. And once you do that, you get something downloaded to your mobile phone that allows you to go into the gym or the library or the dining hall. Okay. If you've been vaccinated, you don't have to do that anymore. Right now, if you leave campus for something, like if you go home, if somebody from Oberlin goes home to New York for a funeral, a life cycle event, and comes back, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. If you've been vaccinated, you don't have to do that. So there are advantages to getting the vaccine. But at this point, Oberlin and others are not requiring it. And I think the rationale is that the vaccine was approved on an emergency basis. It didn't go through the years and years of testing that things like polio vaccine did or MMR did. And without that, I think that the general councils of the universities are not willing to say it's either yes, you get it, or no, you may not be on campus. But that, things could change over the summer. Things could change next year. We just don't know. It is fluid, but colleges are going to be sharing their requirements with students who are enrolling as soon as, right now we can say it's recommended. If on June 1st we say, okay, now it's required, we're going to have to make sure to tell students on that day so that they can figure out what to do. And for some, it may be very easy to get it at home. Others, they may wait till they get to campus. And they'll come to campus, they can get it, but they're going to have to quarantine for a couple of weeks.
Well, if no one has any more questions, thank you, Josh, so much, as always.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we love you, and thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, of course. I always love doing this. This is so much fun.
Thank you very, very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I am so happy to help. And again, really, if you guys have other questions about things, please let me know.